Okay. So the distinction between rasa and bhav is key to Indian aesthetics, right? And what it means here is that bhav are those emotions that we experience on uh, everyday life, that we all experience, right? Fear, sexual arousal, happiness, feeling of uh, excitement, revulsion, and so on and so forth. So we have experienced all these emotions, but when we watch them represented in a work of art, they take on a very different ontological status, in the sense that you may like to experience the feeling of horror in a horror films, the excitement, the thrill of it. But in everyday life, you may not want to experience those conditions, right? Which means that they are ontologically different from each other. The emotion of fear that you experience on everyday life, on everyday basis, or in your real life, is different from experience of fear that you see on screen or on the stage or in a book while you read a book, or when someone tells you a story which is scary, right? So these are two different kind of emotions. uh, the emotion that you experience of fear in everyday real situation is called bhav, and the fear that you experience while watching horror movie is called rasa. So rasa means sap or a juice, or it also means mercury. Uh, which they put in the mirror, right? It also means flavor or taste. So it has got this whole range of metaphorical meanings the term ras has. Uh, Bhav is from word bhava, means to be. So when you are feeling scared, you are feeling scared, right? You are scared. But when you watch a horror film, you are tasting fear, like you taste salt or you taste spices or you taste something, right? So that is the underlying concept here. So rasa is the emotion that one derives from artistic representations, while bhav is what everybody experiences, right? So is that distinction between bhav and ras clear? That is the key distinction. And some people have capacity to experience those rasas, right? And they are called saharudayas, or their heart is of similar kind to that of the author, saharudaya. Yeah, that person's heart is kindred heart, and that is why they are able to experience these artistic emotions. So distinction between everyday life emotions and artistic emotions is the key to understand bhav and rasa. And bhav can be of two types. One is sthai bhav, which is more or less stable and dominant. It stays. It, while the other kind of bhav that you experience in everyday life is fickle, or it's temporary, right? And that is called vyobhichari bhav. Vyobhichari is something which is not stable, which is mixed with other bhav, which is transient almost. And according to the ancient psychology upon which Rasa Sutra and Natya Shastra is based, you have got around 8 main sthai bhavas, right? And when they are represented on stage and you experience them, they become rasa. And there are 8 main rasas. So look at page number 326 for the distinction between sthai bhava and rasas. So I want you to look at this list. So love between sexes, or rati, is a sthai bhava, right? While when it is transformed into rasa, when it is shown on the screen or on the stage, it becomes Shrungara, right? When you see laughter, that is, you laugh in your everyday life, right? That is hasa. But when it is shown on the stage or in the film or in the poem or in the novel, it becomes hasya, right? And you can see it's an adjective. Has is a noun because it is bhava. Bhava means to be. You are laughing, right? So it's a way of being. It's while hasya is comic, something that makes you laugh. So that is rasa. Sorrow is shok, but when it is presented in an artistic way on the stage, it becomes karuna rasa. Utsaha becomes veera. Bhaya becomes bhayanaka. So the horror film that we are talking about is what should I say? Is bhayanaka, not bhaya, right? Bhaya is when, say, for example, you are actually attacked by ghosts or burglars when you are asleep. आप रात को सोते हो और नीचे से actually भूत आता है. So that is bhaya, right? But when you see a character on the screen who is oblivious of ghost underneath the table on which you are sitting, then that is a fictional representation of fear which you taste as a person, right? So that is bhayanaka. Anger which you experience in everyday life, krodh becomes raudra when it is depicted on the stage or the screen. Disgust is jugupsa, is represented in artistic emotion that it results is odious or bibhatsa. And astonishment or wonderment that you experience is called vismaya. And when it is represented on stage or screen or in a novel, it becomes adbhuta, right? To the list of these 8 rasa and 8 bhava, you find a later addition made by Abhinav Gupta, and he says that Sam, his passion, is the most important bhav, and when it is shown in the stage or a movie or in a epic like Mahabharata, it is Shant. So Shanta rasa is one of the greatest rasas according to Abhinav Gupta, right? And later on you will find that philosophers of Vaishnav Bhakti, Chaitanya Bhakti called Rup Goswami, he would add one more ras called Bhakti, right? So in all there are 10 rasas according to these aestheticians. And many aestheticians make a case for one being the most important. For example, Raja Bhoj, who wrote a very famous treatise on aesthetics, right? King of Malwa, Bhoj, said that Rati, when it is represented as Shrungar, is the main rasa. Erotic becomes the most important rasa. While in Bharat's Natya Shastra, you find 8 rasas, while people have added to it. So what is Rasa Sutra? You find on page 328, if you can see this, right? And Rasa Sutra goes something like this. It is on page 328, first paragraph. And it goes like this. Rasa results when there is harmonious fusion of 3 elements in drama, namely Vibhava, Anubhava, and Vyobhichari Bhava. So what is Vibhava? Vibhava means something that triggers those emotions in your everyday life, right? For example, आपका result आता है तो भय पैदा होता है आपके मन में. So that result is the Vibhava, right? And then you see your result and you have got 20 marks out of 100. And you think you are going to fail, ऐसा लग रहा है आपको. So that becomes the Sthai Bhava. and then you start trembling when you start looking at the result sheet and you start sweating. So these are the consequences of those bhava, and that is called अनुभव. अनु means after, भाव means भाव आप एक्सपीरियंस करने के बाद में आपको जो लगता है, जैसे पसीना छूटना या tremble, right, and you bite your nails. So all that is anubhava, right? So vibhava, anubhava, and the mixed feeling of fear and anxiety comes with whole list of vyobhichari bhavas given on page 326 and 27. Starting with Nirveda, Glani, Shanka, She, and so on and so forth. Right? So you might be thrust, tras. So that can be mixed with your sthai bhav, bhaya. Now, when all this is acted out on the screen or on the stage, when actor sees that trigger to emotion and responds to it physically, right, through abhinaya, which is of two kinds, vachika abhinaya and angika abhinaya. So actor starts acting that thing on the stage and the audience experiences the rasa called bhayanaka, right? So that is how emotions are communicated in a play. So actor mimics vibhava, anubhava, and of two main kinds of acting. One is called angika abhinaya, that is through physical acting, and then there is something called vachika abhinaya, which means speaking about it. So by dialogue delivery, right? So these through abhinaya, the actor represents this emotion on the stage, which is transformed into the minds of the spectators as rasa, called bhayana, right? So this is what Rasa Sutra means. Rishi, yes.
Sir, I have one question about the 33 Vyabhichari Bhava that are listed in that page. So one of them is Mrityu, death. So sir, isn't that supposed to be like a perpetual state?
Yeah. Now see, all this is based on ancient psychology. तो 2500 साल पहले की साइकोलॉजी है ये. आज के साइकोलॉजी के टेम्पलेट से वो मिलती नहीं है, राइट? सो मृत्यु इज अ काइंड ऑफ डेथ इन लाइफ मे बी. आप जानते हो 4 बार फेल हुए और फिर से रिजल्ट आने वाला है जो आप जानते हो कि आप अच्छा परफॉर्म नहीं किए हो, तो वो मौत जैसा लगता है आपको. यू कैन टेक इट एज अ सिंबॉलिक थिंग, राइट? अच्छा मेटाफर नहीं दे रहा हूँ ना, इलिस्ट्रेशन में अच्छा नहीं दे रहा हूँ. श्रृंगार की बातें करनी चाहिए, पर मैं भय और भयानक की बात कर रहा हूँ. ओके, बिकॉज आई फाइंड दैट फियर इज फार मोर परवेसिव देन erotic feeling. Yeah, Khadija.
Sir, I'm still a little confused between bhav, vibhav, anubhav, and like I have notes from bachelor's. So bhav, it says that they are the root word, like which. So the word bhav basically refers to material things, like birth, growth, reproduction, and vibhav are the causes or determinants of the rise of an emotion.
Correct.
And then
and then
yes, and then Vyabhichari are the permanent or temporary psychological states.
So, Vyabhichari is temporary psychological states. Yeah. Sthai are more or less stable, as the term implies. Sthai bhav and Vyabhichari bhav. Vyabhichari is a kind of adultery, right? So it's a mixture of various emotions. It has multiplicity of emotions which are mixed, where one predominant, एक predominant है और बाकी सब mixed feelings है, right? So mixed feeling की list 33 दी है उसने, and that is according to something which was written 2000 years ago, when based on that ancient psychology, right? So what is anubhava? Determinant का मतलब क्या है? Means something which triggers those feelings for you, right? Something which brings about those emotions in your mind. So what would cause laughter to you? Say, for example, you see आपके टीचर की चेन खुली है, आप देखते हो, that causes laughter. You are sitting on a front bench और आपके टीचर की चेन खुली है, so that is vibhav. And then you laugh loudly, which is a consequence of feeling of amusement, and that is called anubhava. And you are trying to hide your laughter, मुंह बंद कर रहे हो, हंसने की दबा रहे हो, फिर भी आपको हंसी आ रही है, and that is what you are acting out on the screen or on the stage through abhinaya. And audience experiences hasya, right? Or looking at your acting and the condition, भाव, अनुभव और व्यभिचारी भाव, उसके साथ कुछ जुड़े हुए मिक्स फीलिंग भी हो सकते हैं. क्या मिक्स फीलिंग हो सकते हैं हास्य में? कुछ भी हो सकता है, राइट? 33 में से कोई भी एक चूज कर लो. सो वो मिक्स होके, या.
But then, sir, what is the bhav in this situation? Like, as you said, as you gave the example of.
Yeah, so hasya is the bhav. Has is bhav. And rasa is hasya. Page 326. उसका विभाव क्या है, डिटर्मिनेंट क्या है, जो कॉज करता है, ट्रिगर करता है, वो सिचुएशन है जहाँ पे आप पहले बेंच पे बैठे और टीचर की चेन खुली हुई है, पोस्ट ऑफिस खुला हुआ है, राइट? और आप देखते ही आपको हंसी आती है, वो फिजिकल एक्सप्रेशन है, तो वो अनुभाव कहते हैं, राइट? और आपके मन में मिक्स्ड फीलिंग है कि आप हमको ही डांटेंगे टीचर, आपको ऐसी शंका है या चिंता भी हो रही है कि हम मुझे ही डांटना, इसलिए आप अपने हंसने को आप सप्रेस कर रहे हो. When you act that on the stage or on the screen, or if you depict that in a novel or a poem, and people feel like laughing, right? That is called rasa, and rasa is hasya. Yeah, Rushi.
Okay, then. Then what is the vyabhichari bhav here?
कुछ भी हो सकता है ना व्यभिचारी भाव. ये कॉन्टेक्स्ट स्पेसिफिक भी हो सकता है. जैसे आपको गर्व हो सकता है, देखो मैं कितनी वेल ग्रूम्ड हूं और टीचर कैसे डिसेबल्ड है. आपको टेरर भी हो सकता है, क्योंकि आप जानते हो बहुत भयंकर टीचर है, पीटेंगे आपको, right? So it can be tras, 32nd number of vyabhichari. So vyabhichari bhav can be any.
Also,
But predominant
it
bhav
differs.
क्या है? स्थायी भाव क्या है? हास.
Okay, and vyabhichari bhav, like if like for a given situation, vyabhichari bhav can be different for everyone. Okay.
Yes. And when it is depicted through abhinaya by the actor on the screen, and the audience experiences emotion called hasya, which is the rasa, right? Yeah, Pooja.
So I have not studied this, so I fully do not get these. But when you say vibhava, so vibhava is something which arouses laughter, like some reaction, right?
Not just laughter, any of this.
Any reaction.
Emotion.
Okay, any emotion. Okay, any
reaction को another word है.
Okay.
वो है अनुभव.
So reaction is anubhava.
Consequence of that emotion.
Okay, and all of these is performed on stage, and when these arouses an emotion in the audience, that is called rasa.
Exactly.
Okay. So it basically has to be acted out, right? So if okay. And
there is a term that they call is sadharikarana. Means generalization happens. That means a particular situation hai where your very strict teacher whom you are scared of, and you find that that person's trouser chain is open. You feel like laughing, but you're also afraid that you might be given a peace of mind, right? Where it is acted out, right? The specific emotion, which is specific to a particular situation, right? अब जो ऑडियंस है वो तो आप बैठे नहीं है बेंच पे, उनको तो डरने की बात ही नहीं है ना वो टीचर से, जो टीचर भी एक्टर ही है वहां पे. I hope you get what I'm saying. So that specific emotion is transformed into generalized emotion, and that causes rasa, right? So even if you are not as an audience, you don't see, you are not being murdered, right? But then you experience fear yourself. So how does that fear of a specific situation is transformed into generalized emotion, which audience can experience, right? Is called sadharikarana.
Okay, but I thought it is mixed emotions that gives rise to specific reactions. Like in the example when we are talking about the student probably feels fear, anxiety, and also like wants to laugh. So this is like a very mixed emotions, right? But the audience would only laugh. So that is like a very specific generalized reaction they give.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why Rasa Sutra says three things, no? Vibhava, Anubhava, and Vyabhichari Bhava. And the metaphor that Bharat uses is very interesting. He calls it Vyanjana, which means you are cooking something. So थोड़े उसमें आप so artist or the dramatist is like a cook who put some masala ingredients there, right? And some चाय की पत्ती, मसाला, दूध, पानी, शक्कर ये डाल के वो कुक करता है. विभाव, अनुभव और व्यभिचारी भाव डाल के वो बनाता है जो ऑडियंस चखती है. Right, that's the metaphor that Bharat uses in Natya Shastra to talk about how artist is like a cook, right? And a work of art is like a recipe. And you can see how tenacious this metaphor is when we look at Hindi Bollywood film today. Have you heard of the term masala film?
Yes, sir.
What does it mean?
That it's something exaggeratedly dramatic, and it is something very extra.
What are extra things? Masale में क्या होता है?
So there usually is like nonsensical fight scenes or item songs or
item song डालो, fight, action, drama, melodrama, माँ का रोना धोना, रेप सीन, खून खराबा, फालतू की कॉमेडी, राइट? ये सब मिला के एक फिल्म बनती है जो मसाला फिल्म बनती है. But if you look at the source of this idea, then it goes back to the ancient Indian civilization. So as if narrative, the philosophy of narrative or poetics, right, that contemporary Hindi cinema is using are the traditional ones going back to Bharat. And that's why if you compare, say, for example, Bollywood film with a Hollywood film, then Hollywood film is governed by the rules of probability and necessity which Aristotle promoted, right? So that even if you're trying to show a person turning into an ant, you have to make it logical, convincing, rational. It should look probable, even if it is never probable, right? So you talk about nanotechnology and quantum mechanics और ये सब nonsense आप ऐड करते हो, तो इंसान कैसे चीटी बन जाता है वो आप दिखाते हो, right? So even if you are showing things which are improbable, the Western narrative poetic says that you have to make it probable. It is the iron law that Aristotle lays down. And it should be governed by necessity. Means you should not show things which are unnecessary to the plot. Plot being the most important thing in a play or in the narrative. You should not add anything that is unnecessary. But if you compare it with Bollywood film, then you find, why are these 100 people dancing? Right? Because Indian narrative traditions do not follow Aristotelian poetics. Right? They are closer to Natya Shastra poetics. Right? Indian civilizational narrative. So it's like compare Western food, that you have appetizer, then the first course, second course, and then you have dessert, right? It's 3 course, 4 course lunch or dinner. But in India, it's like thali. So you may have Shrikhand and Amras and pickles and papad and dahi and sabjis of 13 kinds and roti and saag in a single plate, right? So you can see how the linearity, causality that determines Western mode of thinking is missing, or you can say it is different in Indian narrative traditions, in Indian lifestyle as well. So people are looking for recipe of films, right? कौन सी film सुपर हिट बनानी है तो क्या क्या डालना पड़ेगा, तो आइटम सॉन्ग डालना ही पड़ेगा, राइट? देन देयर इज जुदाई का सॉन्ग आना, अरिजीत सिंह को भी तो पैसे कमाने हैं, राइट? And then you need some fight scenes, and you need behan and ma for certain kind of emotions, and you need ridiculous comic scenes, right? So you can see that your dislike for Bollywood very often comes from your, what should I say, your love for the Western narrative tradition. But for me, they are just different, historically different narrative traditions, right? That's why these films are not made for you. They are made for Indians, right? So you can see that how poetics have this tenacity, right? Aristotelian's plot structure of 3 acts, right? Rising action, falling action, denouement, climax. All that is still followed even today in the West. While in India, it's all thali. It's not linear kind of narrative. It's.
But sir, I have a question. I want to understand, like, why does this masala film resonate so much with the Indians? Because
Indians are born and brought up in these narrative traditions. Your tastes and your preferences are shaped by the culture you are brought up in. That is why. जो आप बचपन से देखते बड़े हुए हो ना, वो आपको अच्छा लगने लगता है. So if you have watched a lot of Hollywood films, then you prefer those than this. You don't like Gujarati thali. You prefer Starbucks. Yeah.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Sir, I have a doubt. What is Kavya Alankara and Kavya Lakshana?
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Kavya Alankar. We are coming to Alankar, but first let's get over with this rasa thing, right? Which is the fundamental principle of Indian aesthetics or Sanskrit poetics, right? So it has to be clear before we change the topic.
Okay.
Is it clear for all of you, or any doubt, queries about rasa? And you can see how these traditions of storytelling exist for thousands of years.
Sir.
Yeah.
So after Krishnamurti depicts all the Vyabhichari Bhava, he says something about how after ras we only focus on vyabhichari bhavas and not the sthayi bhava. It's something along the line.
Yeah.
So why is that?
So what he seems to be saying that there is one predominant sthayi bhava and there can be any number of vyabhichari bhava and you cannot separate them and they are specific, right? So he is talking about in the Rasa Sutra Anubhava, Vibhava, Anubhava and Vyabhichari bhava, which includes sthayi as well as other mixed emotions. So probably what he wants to imply, Bharat wants to imply, and we are not sure about it, that no emotion exists in its pure state, right? However, the aesthetic feeling can be is always in a pure state. That is what. So emotions are always intermixed with one chief emotion and other subsidiary emotions. That is why he prefers to use Vyabhichari bhavas throughout. And that becomes a shortcut for bhav ka matlab hi Vyabhichari bhav. Because bhav cannot exist in purity. That is what he wants to imply. Yeah, who had raised hand? Does that help you?
Okay, sir.
Rushi?
Yes, sir. And sir, another thing. So you mentioned Raja Bhoj, right? So is he like the patron of Kalidas?
No. Bhoj was a later king, 11th century or so. And I think his name of his book is Shringar Prakash. I forget that. I will let you know. So,
and sir,
he's later king. Kalidas is 6th, 7th century or 4th century. We don't know. But mostly during Gupta period. He's one of the Navaratnas in the court of Chandragupta, probably, or Samudragupta. I don't know exactly. So,
and sir, another thing
which comes
is
later 500 years. Bolo.
So, is this Raja Bhoj the same as depicted in Prithvi Vallabh by K.M. Munshi?
Now, Raja Bhoj is a kind of, what should I say? He's a almost semi-mythological king, Banjara, King Vikram, right? We can't historically place these people, and there are many kings who went by the name of Vikram, Vikramaditya. So in India, you cannot really pin down because stories are orally transmitted narratives, right? So you have hundreds of stories of Raja Bhoj and all that. Vikram, Vital. I don't know if you have heard of these stories. Vikram.
Yes, sir.
Vital, yeah. So they are semi-mythological people whose exact historicity is unknown because most of these people are part of orally transmitted narratives, stories. Okay, so is that done? Ras ka complete ho gaya chapter. Should we go over to the next chapter on Alankar? Who had asked this question about Alankara? Kavya Alankar and all that.
Well, I have.
Yeah. So should we go over to the next topic? Okay. So Alankara means ornament, right? But yeah, Khadija, bolo.
So I just have this one question. As you said that not any emotion is complete, like you just said. So that means that agar koi ek emotion hai, for example,
what I said was no emotion can exist in pure state.
Pure state, right? So does that mean कि अगर मेरे लिए कोई चीज भयानक है तो किसी और के लिए it could be something else, like
no, it means आपको भयानक के साथ और भी फीलिंग्स हैं जो हर एक के लिए अलग हो सकते हैं. शेर खाने को आएगा, कोई हंसने तो नहीं लगेगा ना. आप लोगों को हाँ, है ना? पर उसके रिस्पॉन्सेस भयानक भय के साथ और भी होते हैं. You may feel very sad
Yes,
or
like
some people.
exactly. I'm like I meant that only that if I am feeling scared, someone else might start crying. So that would be Karun for him, right?
नहीं नहीं नहीं
So
नहीं नहीं करुण है ना, वो रस है, वो सिर्फ वो ऑडियंस के माइंड में आता है, रीडर के माइंड में.
okay, okay, yes.
Yeah. So rasa is always an expression in the mind of the audience, spectator, the Saharadaya, one person who has same heart.
Okay.
Okay. Alankara means ornament, but it also means something that completes something. And the metaphor that these people are obsessed with is beautiful body versus ornaments. Right? Ornaments को आप makeup भी कह सकते हो. In today, filters भी use कर सकते हो, right? So, what is the source of beauty? Is it body or is it filters? जब आप selfie देखते हो किसी का, is it makeup plus filters or is it natural body that is beautiful, right? That is the metaphor that these people were obsessed with. So what is the source of beauty according to these aestheticians is that alankaras are the source of beauty, right? I remember Marilyn Monroe saying somewhere that even Marilyn Monroe doesn't look like Marilyn Monroe. It's all the camera work and the makeup artist and others who have done the job, right? What is the source of beauty? There is it natural body or is it ornamentation or alankar? Is one of the debates that happened in ancient India. And people who started theorizing literature were also called alankar shastris, right? So aesthetics या poetics के लिए term that was used was alankar shastra. It was also called kriya kalpa, right? And there is a whole tradition of thinking about alankara. And on page 319, during 7th century, you have scholars like Bhamaha, Dandi, Vamana, Udbhat, and Rudrat. These are important philosophers of Kavya or literature in rough parlance, right? So the source of beauty, according to these people, is Alankara, right? And that is the metaphor. So what kind of utterances will give, if you define Kavya as Vakyam Rasatmakam Kavyam, जिस वाक्य में रस आपको चखने को मिलता है उसे काव्य कहते हैं. So what is the source of this aesthetic delight in the sentence, right? And some people argued that it is the natural body, that is the utterance itself, normal utterance itself, or the content of your speech, which is the source of elegance or beauty, right? While others argued that it is something that is added on, like makeup, like filters, like cosmetics, right? So there is normal language, but there is something that it has got a secondary layer that is added to language. So there is everyday language, which is like natural body of a person, and it is embellished with ornaments, makeup, filters, cosmetics, garments, fashion, whatever. ये सब उसके पर आप Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Am I?
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, there's a power failure at my end. But to repeat what I was saying, what was the source of beauty according to these scholars mentioned here on page 319 was a question of debate. That normal utterance or normal everyday conversational language is like human body, while alankara is something that is all embellishments that you add to that body to make it beautiful, right? Like cosmetic, like fashion, like hairstyle, like filters, like what have you, right? So that is an additional processing that you have to do to normal language to make it aesthetically appealing. So source of aesthetic uh, impact in poetry, and you can see that we have moved away from drama and gone over to kavya, right? When we start discussing alankara. So alankara is largely theory of kavya, right? Where natya is subsumed as one form of kavya later on. Remember, Bharat is almost 500 years, 700 years, 800 years before these people. 1000 साल बाद की बात कर रहे हैं. So these people are saying that the source of beauty in a kavya or literature is not normal everyday language, but something that is added to it. And the study of it is called Alankara Shastra, right? Which is poetics. Now, what causes this, right? What causes addition of Alankar to make a linguistic utterance aesthetically pleasing, right? Was also a topic of debate and discussion. Now, these alankars are usually classified as figures of speech. And there is a problem when we classify them as figures of speech, because in the West, figures of speech were part of something called rhetoric, right? Those, I don't know who, some of you may remember in your fifth semester, TYBA, we discussed rhetoric, right? Aristotle and Plato and rhetoric. And so rhetoric was art of oratory, art of persuading people, using language to get effective outcome, right? So figures of speech or tropes were very often studied under the rubric of rhetorica. But alankar is figures of speech are studied under the rubric of aesthetics or beautification or science of beauty. So that is the difference. I hope you get the difference. So rhetoricians would say that figures of speech are used in everyday life to make your communication more effective. But aestheticians would say that figures of speech have to be used artistically to get an artistic impact. And that artistic impact is experience of rasa, right? So rasa is the soul of poetry. Language is the body, and these figures of speech are the embellishments of all kinds. So can you see the metaphor here, right? So kavya atma uska ras hai. So ultimate end of art is giving you aesthetic emotion. That is rasa, right? And Alankara Shastris made a distinction between Artha Alankars and Shabda Alankars. So Shabda Alankars are like Alankars of sound, like rhymes, like alliteration, like consonance, like assonance, like parallelism, right? These are the figures of sound. While figures of sense or Artha Alankars are like, what should I say? Metaphor, simile. Metaphor के लिए word है रूपक, उत्पेक्षा, उपमा. Upma is simile. Atishyoक्ति Atishayokti, and so on and so forth. There are hundreds of alankars, and one of the prominent features of Sanskrit poetics is with coming up all kinds of alankars that they came up with. So their list is countless, right? So for 2000 years, people are obsessed with finding new thoughts about alankar. So artha alankar and shabda alankar, and that is where the definition of literature becomes a very important point for us. So what is the definition of literature? According to Bhamaha, it is, or is it Kundaka? He says, शब्दार्थो सहितो काव्यम, शब्द और अर्थ एक होते हैं तब काव्य बनता है. Now this is very banal. Right now I'm speaking, that is also word and meaning together, right? Now that cannot be kavya. So what he implies is that you use shabda alankar and artha alankar together, which combination of these two produces literary-ness, right? Poeticness. So you can see how these theorists are anticipating Russian formalism. So I don't know if you remember something from Russian formalist that we studied last year in first semester. Does anyone remember Russian formalism?
Yes, sir.
What do you remember?
So they also discussed the literariness of a language and how it is.
Right?
Yes, in terms of
familiarization. Right. So Eichenbaum would famously say that the object of literary criticism is not literature but literariness. Right? Kavyatmakta. And that literariness is the aesthetic emotion, something that produces aesthetic emotions, the mechanism that produces aesthetic emotions. And that mechanism is also device. And those devices are called alankara. So you can see how in India you had an advanced theory of formalism, right? In Sanskrit. So Russia mein Western culture mein formalism becomes a big deal only in the beginning of 20th century, right? But we are talking about 1 millennia ago, more than 1 millennia. 1500 साल पहले formalism was a big deal in India. So what is the source of beauty? Source of beauty is when artha alankar, अर्थ का जो अलंकार है, अर्थ को जो खूबसूरत बनाता है और शब्द को जो खूबसूरत बनाता है, वो दोनों एक आते हैं, तब वो साहित्य कहलाता है. शब्दार्थो सहितो काव्यम. That's the famous distinction, that is the famous definition of poetry or literature that is given. So Kavya Alankar is the name of the book by, I think, काव्य अलंकार इसकी किताब है, यहाँ पे क्लियरली मेंशन नहीं किया, बट आई विल टेल यू द डिटेल्स later on. Probably Kuntak, right? So Alankar Shastra is the old name for aesthetics or poetics, right? And you can see that it is building on top of Bharat's Natya Shastra, but it is extending that argument into the domain of written or oral compositions, right? Verbal compositions. Bharat is talking largely about theater and dramaturgy, that is the whole knowledge of theater. While these people are concerned with kavya, like Kalidas's kavya or Bhas kavya, or everything. So like Dandi's kavya, right, and so on and so forth. So Kavya Shastra lays great emphasis on Alankar, and later on it is grounded in a theory which again anticipates Western thinking, a school called stylistics. Have you heard of stylistics? Stylistics. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir. I have heard the term stylistics, but I don't remember what it means.
Okay. You have not heard of stylistics? Stylistics
We have
Is it,
heard.
sir, study of style?
Study of style, yes, but with a definite theoretical framework, and that theoretical framework is linguistics. So it's almost application of language science or linguistic to study of literature. That is called stylistic. But it has got a wider application, right? It also is rhetoric. Okay. So one of the ideas is called Vakrokti, right? And Vakrokti means the source of beauty, right? In an alankar. तो अलंकार में खूबसूरती कहाँ से आती है? अगर रस आता है अलंकार से, तो अलंकार में कैसे आता है? तो they talk of Vakrokti, that is deviant or crooked speech, indirect speech, oblique speech. So while other uses of language is direct and straight and linear, this is an oblique way of using language. Right? So Vakrokti gives rise to Alankara, which gives rise to Ras. So the real source of beauty, according to certain Alankar Shastra like Kuntak, is Vakrokti. And Vakrokti is a very important idea. Right? So in the stylistic is called norm deviation theory. That means poetry or literature deviates from certain normal usage of language, right? In order to produce aesthetic impact on the reader. That is the norm deviation theory in stylistics. So instead of saying things directly in linear way, you are saying it in non-linear way. So this non-linear utterance, Vakrokti, is the source of beauty according to Kuntak. And this is very similar to Paul Valéry's theory of poetry. He says that normal prose language is like walking, while poetic language is like dancing. Normal conversation has to go from A to B, B to C. Dancing, you can go from B to C, C to A, again A to C. Right? There is no linear rule that governs dancing, because the objective of dance is to produce aesthetic in the audience. Right? So Paul Valéry, the French poet, would almost echo Kuntak when he says that poetry is like dancing. Right? So Vakrokti is a very important theory, and Alankar. So is it clear what is Alankar and Vakrokti? Any questions about that?
So
No, sir.
Can you explain the Vakroti again?
Vakra Ukti. Vakra yani crooked or indirect or oblique. Vakra.
So your voice is
Vaki. Ukti yani bolna. Yani jo, my voice is not coming from Vakra, is that utterance which is oblique or crooked, right? So this deviation in language causes aesthetic emotion. For example, when Robert Burns says, "My love is like a red, red rose," right? He is deviating from normal utterance. One, by bringing in a simile, and secondly, by repeating the word red. Now, why does he do that? Is because he is deviating from normal usage, right? And Russian formalists would say he is doing that to defamiliarize the language and emotions, right? Russian scholars like Slavisky would say that literary utterance defamiliarizes through tropes and devices, right? So Vakrokti is this Vakra Ukti. Another example is a line by Dylan Thomas, a very famous poet, Welsh poet. He says, "A grief ago," right? We usually speak of 1 year ago, 1 month ago, or 1 day ago, but he is measuring his life in terms of grief that he has experienced. So he said, "1 grief ago aise hua." Now that is not how you would use language in your everyday life, right? So he's deviating from everyday normal usage of language, right? So this deviant language is Vakrokti, right? उसे द्रविड़ी प्राणायाम भी कहते हैं, यानी रियल प्राणायाम में कैसा होता है कि आप अपने नाक को बंद करते हो ऐसे, राइट? द्रविड़ी प्राणायाम में आप ऐसे पकड़ने जाते हो ना, घुमा फिरा. तो ये घुमा फिरा के कहने की जो बात है, इज द सोर्स ऑफ ब्यूटी एंड एलिगेंस अकॉर्डिंग टू कुंता. Is that clear what is Vakrokti?
So, sir, Russians would call this deviation of language as defamiliarizing.
Not just Russian formalists, stylisticians would call it norm deviation theory.
But we see it as a process of beautifying it, the language.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's part of what brings about alankara. So alankaras are actually devices of vakrata, crookedness. So this is a fairly advanced theory of literature that you can find in Sanskrit. It's formalist. Any other doubt, questions about that?
Sir, I wanted to ask about Gun and Alankar.
Guna.
Gun.
Guna alankar. So guna is the characteristic feature of poetry or literary language. उसमें गुण क्या है, सद्गुण क्या है, या दोष क्या है? गुण दोष की बातें होती हैं, right? So guna is good traits or good aspects of kavya, literature. And dosh are blemishes or faults or shortcomings. And there was great discussion on guna or dosh. So is kavi mein kya gun hai, right? Means what are the strengths of that poet in terms of literary use of language, in terms of as a writer. So they may be imaginativeness, that is pratibha, is something that is prerequisite for a poet. Creative imagination, pratibha or so that genius is what is required for great literature. Without which you cannot. You can be a Rushi, but in order to be a great poet, you also need pratibha. So the example given is of Vyas or Valmiki. They were not just great rishis and visionaries, but they had this pratibha, kavi pratibha, right? Artistic genius. So gun dosh is that kind of appreciation of literary text. और बहुत सारे दिए हुए हैं गुण और दोष. Is that clear? It is not अलंकार. अलंकार जो अच्छी तरीके से यूज करता है तो वो गुण कहलाता है. अगर बराबर अलंकार यूज नहीं करते हो तो वो दोष बन जाता है. राइट?
Yes,
तो
sir.
क्वेश्चन उठता है वो कौन सा है, किस तरीके से यूज करना चाहिए अलंकारों को. तो द वर्ड दैट दे यूज इज औचित्य or propriety, right? So propriety is very important in use of alankara and use of literary tropes in language. You cannot show Ram as a clown, right? That would be a fault, which is not based in language, but misrepresentation of a character, right? So that is one of the dosha that you may have. I'm just giving you a random example, but that is what it basically meant. Any other question?
But sir,
Yeah.
why would it be a dosh? Matlab, it is a character. Anybody can take any character and represent them in their own way in their stories.
नहीं. वो own way वाला individualistic norms of creativity did not exist in India. अब जो चाहे वही कर सकते हो.
ठीक है. This is a very modern view, sir. अच्छा ठीक है.
आज भी नहीं कर सकते हो.
That is now तो चलो ठीक है.
Huh? That is a very Western, modern, contemporary. Yeah, can you hear me? Is it better?
Yes.
Yeah, so this individualism of modern bourgeois kind उस टाइम में नहीं था. जो चाहे मैं राम को कोई भी बता सकता हूँ, वो आज भी नहीं चलेगा, उस टाइम में भी नहीं चलेगा. राइट? ये वो उचित नहीं है.
But cannot this be a limitation then कि like you know we have एक तरीके से no freedom in how they want to.
फ्रीडम, इंडिविजुअल फ्रीडम का आइडिया बहुत ही नया है और बहुत ही वेस्टर्न है. चाइना में, इंडिया में ऐसे नॉर्म्स नहीं थे. सिविलाइजेशंस अलग है. Even in West, you cannot portray Jesus Christ as a clown. Yeah, there is a limit to free speech even in West. Remember that. There is no absolute freedom in the West.
No, I don't mean it just for I don't mean it just for Ram or Christ, but I was just talking in general कि like if in general कोई दूसरे character को लेके represent कर रहा है, तो that would also be a
But
दोष.
दोष बहुत तरीके, बहुत list दिया हुआ है. I'm just giving one example. Where is it? The whole list of kavya dosh. Judgment in literature, page number 330. Anuchit or dosh. Harsh sounding words, obscenity, improper denotation, archaism, vulgarity, gramya, ambiguity, far-fetched meaning, nayartha. If you look on page 331, these are various doshas.
Yes, sir, found it.
So there are a lot of flaws or errors. Flaws mostly related to errors in grammar, syntax, composition, and arise from inadequate equipment in general knowledge, rules of logic, common sense in the part of the poet. poet is not somebody who has a recent breakup and is high on drugs. Poet is somebody who is a learned person, right? Scholarship was required, a prerequisite in those days for poetry. So our romantic individualist notions of literature did not exist in those days. That is something that we have to keep in mind. And very often these poems are presented to the kings, right? So all this discussion of flaws is very important. ये कौन सा कवि अच्छा है तो उसे पैसे ज्यादा देंगे हम लोग पैट्रनेज के लिए. So you can see that, right? Now you may ask, who decides all this? Now the question of authority in India, ancient India was very clear. इसमें by birth, by learning, by gender, authority थी. So if you remember from our comparative literature class, that when Tess of d'Urberville was read out by I.A. Richards in China, they clapped when she died, right?
That was exactly what I was going to talk about.
Yeah. So all ideas of individual freedom, the kind of individualistic bourgeoisie notions are not part of all civilizations, right? In China, the authority figures were even today are very clear cut. It is Bap who decides everything, right? Father is clearly the figure. There is no space for questioning patriarchy. Patriarchy is the source of order. And disorder is the most terrifying thing that can happen to society according to Chinese philosophy. Harmony अगर चाहिए तो आपको authority चाहिए, hierarchy चाहिए. नहीं तो आपके पास सिर्फ chaos और anarchy होंगे, and that's why they are not very appreciative about democracies like America or West or India. For them, this stability and order is more important. Then, so you can see how civilizational values differ from culture to culture. We are colonized by West too much, and that's why probably this individualism is something that we love, but we don't practice it in our everyday life. बातें हैं सर, करने जाओगे तो मार खाओगे, right? है ना? तो बड़ी बड़ी बातें हम करते हैं individual freedom की, but actually in real life you don't do that. So you have to look at it historically. So authority, question of authority was fairly defined in terms of Varna in those days, and power, patriarchy and power and upper caste. In China, you patriarchy all the way, right?
Sir, when we were discussing about Tess wala, we also somebody asked like, isn't it wrong? Then there was this question ki how do we know if it is right or wrong, right? So अगर humanity के way से ही देख ले, like one point कि like at least it's not nice to somebody who suffers a lot has to be killed. Even then it cannot be considered as wrong.
ये जो humanism है वो भी बहुत ही western
concept है. अरे everything is so
concept है. Renaissance के time से निकला हुआ है west में से.
But just because it is western फिर does not necessarily mean ना कि फिर हम लोग उसको western कह के छोड़ दे और उसको उतना value ना दे.
So values, right? Who decides what values is a fraught question, right? Chinese would say all this nonsense about individual freedom results in chaos, cultural chaos, which results in all kinds of psychological disorders and all kinds of problems which we don't want to have. So it's their choice, they reject it, right? Now you may say that there is something like, but the question, Pooja, would be more serious question would be, Why should the Western values be universal? Humanism Western value hai, rationalism Western value hai. Why should that be universal? While they themselves did not practice it anywhere.
Yeah, I don't want it. I don't mean it to be a universal value, but I was talking about it in general. Like, agar jaise in life, when as an Indian, when we are living our life, there are a lot of points where we think कि like I want to be a person who thinks individually और मुझे खुद के बारे में सोचना है, and that does not happen because हमारे यहाँ पे इंडिविजुअलिटी की लाइक वैल्यू ही नहीं है, उसको रेबल की तरफ देखा जाता है, राइट? सो दैट इज व्हाई I sometimes want to incline towards individuality and give it more value because for me it is giving me क्या बोलते हैं as a person more value. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. And these are Western values which you prefer. The idea goes back to Kant, good old Kant. And what is enlightenment? And he says that when you start thinking for yourself, using your own reasoning, that's the sign of maturity and enlightenment, right? Something is good and bad not because authority has told you, but because your reasoning tells you. That has to be the basis of ethics. That has to be the basis of life, right? Now, this process has its political context. Kant was talking, he's expressing Western bourgeois capitalistic notions of individualism, right? Which these social processes and contexts did not happen in other parts of the world like China or India in the same period, right? So these values that you think are normal and laudable are actually having a historical context, right? From where they have emerged. And they are claiming for you they have become natural and universal. But you should know that they are not natural or universal. That is one thing that you should bear in mind. Neither is the West known for humanism or rationalism. उन्होंने वर्ल्ड वॉर किए, उन्होंने गैस चेंबर में डाला, तो कौन सा ह्यूमैनिज्म रैशनलिज्म वो कर, एटम बॉम्ब गिरा है जापान पे, लाखों लोग मर गए, तो कौन सा ह्यूमैनिज्म और रैशनलिज्म आया मुझे पता नहीं. But they preach humanism and rationalism to the world. They themselves did not practice it either. So I would take it with a lot of skepticism. Right today.
I agree that we have to be skeptical about it, but like sir, जैसे normal अगर कुछ कहीं situation है, ठीक है, and I am viewing it with humanity, that what does
so that is a natural situation for you.
Yeah, but that does not necessarily mean ना कि मैं western traditions जो उनके individuality वाली चीज होती है उसके लिए मैं
humanism का basis भी तो वही है ना. कहाँ humanism कहाँ देखने को मिलता है, कहाँ से आया, कैसे आया? humanism natural थोड़ा ही है.
But sir, अगर ऐसे कहे कि it is a western notion, तो फिर ऐसा तो है नहीं ना कि इंडिया में people don't follow humanity. अरे पर
अच्छा मुझे पता नहीं. ओके चलो मान लेते हैं. एक्चुअली कितना फॉलो करते हैं वो शक के घेरे में.
That is a very debatable thing.
इसलिए नॉर्मल जो कह रही है ना, नॉर्मल नेचुरल ह्यूमैनिस्टिक पर्सपेक्टिव, तो वो नॉर्मल नेचुरल नहीं है, हिस्टोरिकली कंस्ट्रक्टेड है. सही मैं कह रहा हूँ. आई एम नॉट डिसएग्रीइंग विथ यू. आई वुड रिस्पॉन्ड टू इट इन द सेम वे. But I also have to be aware of that being historically constructed. It has become natural because my exposure to these thoughts of humanism, democracy, modernity, that came to us via colonialism, ironically. Right? So I would not take it as natural, normal, but I would still say that yes, we have to be humanistic. Not as, but then I would put in caveats as well of certain kinds. But that's a very important point that you have raised. It's a problem for all of us, right, Pooja?
I think I have a very heavy conflict between this apne Indian values, like the togetherness and not having the individuality thing, and this individuality versus individuality.
Yes, yes, I agree. And you will find that even in China on a massive scale, in Africa, in Arabia, non-Western sources may collectivism is more important than individualism. Yeah, Khadija. And that is what clash of civilizations की बातें करते हैं लोग. Yeah, Khadija, go ahead.
Sorry, sir. Actually, I forgot to like put down my hand. But I was exactly going to say what Pooja said. We have been like doing this humanity wala thing before we even read Kant or anyone else for that matter. So like ये तो बहुत like this is something very natural to a human being. Like yeah, you said कि humanity आजकल कौन मतलब कौन इसको practice करता है. But still, I mean, this is very natural to us, that to some of us at least, कि हम
See,
ऐसा.
I'm not saying आपने कांट पढ़ने के बाद humanism पढ़ा, ऐसे नहीं कह रहा. But you are given a kind of education which embodies these Western values of humanism, right? It has not, it's not, and that education is also at home, in the classroom, in the discourses. But these discourses themselves have come from certain places. ऐसे मैं कह रहा हूँ. They are not eternal, natural. They are not inbuilt in you. They are historical. उतना ही मैं कह रहा हूँ. Yeah, Pooja, and then Rushi.
Like yeah, now I kind of get it, because even in like I am surrounded by people who follow certain other values, and if I go back to my village or some different community, there would be people who follow different values. So what I think is humanity according to me would not be a humanity according to them. Even they might think Tess, since she was, they might like victim blame her and stuff, which would be wrong according to me. So now I kind of get it.
So right and wrong को हम मान रहे थे कि universal natural है, मगर ऐसे नहीं है, वो हमको याद रखना है. And then take a stand that yes, this is not humane enough. So it's not because you have read Kant that you have become humanistic. It's because humanism is an ideology of Western bourgeoisie which colonized India, and we internalized many of the values that the West had, right? And our own bourgeoisie internalized this to an extent. But at the same time, if you look at our own practices on everyday life, we may talk of humanism, but do we practice it? Is an open question. Even Western people who are supposed to have invented humanism they don't practice it much. ऐसे दिख नहीं रहा है वहाँ. Right? So that skepticism about humanism is precisely what postmodern condition indicates, right? Incredulity to meta-narratives. तो ये meta-narrative है humanism का, वो post-colonial context में postmodern भी लगने लगता है, right? Just theorizing what you are saying a bit. And then we are left with strange kind of predicament of value relativism. That these people think that is the value, these people think this is the right value, we think this and that. Then what is there any absolute, or is there any larger value system at all that we need to follow? That is a crisis for us. For example, take the question of burqa, right? Now, some people say that this is a sign of oppression. Others would say this is agency, and that is the choice made by those people. Now, that's where the debate ends. That's the logjam. That's where things end. So people will continue what they were doing. So there is an ethical logjam in which we are living today, which is a serious crisis, Pooja. So problem that you face is a serious one, and I acknowledge that. And I would also respond to it in the way that you did. But at the same time, I am aware of the historicity of it as well. उतना ही. It's not as simple as that. इंसानियत जैसी चीज है कि नहीं ये लोग कर रहे हैं ऐसा. जैसे चाइना में लड़कियों के पैर वो बांध के रखते थे छोटी थी तब से. That happened many centuries ago. So that their feet remain small, which was considered a sign of beauty among Chinese. How many of you have heard this? In older times, Chinese girls, their feet were tied down so that they don't grow large, and that was terrifying. Right. So by today's standard or from others, we won't do that to our daughters, obviously. But then they would say, this is our value system. Who are you to intervene? This is our value. You are all ex-colonized people. आप colonial हो. इसलिए आप bourgeois, Western bourgeois जैसे सोचते हो. We have our own values. But I would not do that, right? I would be terrified if somebody is doing that to girls as well. But that was a tradition that lasted hundreds of years in China. Just imagine. So it's not very surprising that they clap, right? So these are the problems.
Sir, it is something similar to what Hobbes said as well, right? About natural state. How people were in natural state before, like killing everybody they see.
Yeah.
And then they form social contract and etc. etc.
An Indian equivalent would be Matsya Nyaya, right? So why do you require king and state? Is because big fish would invariably eat smaller fish, and that bigger fish would be eaten by even bigger fish. So this, in order to avoid this law of jungle and Matsya Nyaya, you require king and a state. That's the ancient Indian theory of state. State of nature में क्या होगा कि बड़ी मछली छोटी को खा जाएगी. The more physically more powerful will eat up, gobble up the less powerful. So there is an ethical need for king who can establish order. Okay, so what we will do, we'll continue the discussion on this later on. Kayan tribes also have similar practice. Yeah, there are many tribes. For example, I have seen that some African women are forced to wear rings in their neck so that their neck becomes longer. Now,
yes, sir, those are Kayan tribe.
no, I wouldn't recommend that. It's not recommended for non-experts. Right? Or some women are made to wear a kind of ring in their lower lip so that it hangs out. Anyway, so one thing that we can definitely take away is that all values, including aesthetic values, are historical. There can never be universal absolute values of beauty as well as life. Okay, so there is a very important idea called Dhwani that we have to discuss, but we can discuss it only in the next week. Right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So we'll stop with that. कुछ कहना है before?
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Okay, so have a nice weekend. And
Thank you, sir.
yes, we meet next week.